Hello, Power fans, and Mathonical are joining me for round 2 with Delvermill. Opening hand is a reasonable keep, nothing too exciting. We are looking to use our Preordain and Ponder to find a second land and some action. But outside of that, as long as we hit a few land drops, these Gushes should be able to fill out our hand going forward. So we're quite happy keeping this one. Gonna go ahead and start on the Ponder. The island is something that we will want, although since we already have a land in hand to play next turn, we basically would like to sequence this. Land on the bottom, Jace in the middle, and Daze on top. The Daze we can cast here if there's a 2-drop that we find that we do not want to play against. Witches is fine. We don't have any X1s that we care about surviving the Witch. We're going to go ahead and play our Jace's Erasure here. And I was mainly looking to Daze any 3-drop they had. And it looks like they're not going to play anything this turn, so that's fine. We're going to mill our opponent. Make sure to auto-yield to this just to save a lot of time going forward. And we're going to start off with the Preordain. Echoing to Truth and the Rider. I don't really want the Echoing Truth in this position. A lot of their creatures have ETB effects, and we don't really want to be hit by them twice. The Rider is something that we're looking for, especially since we have the Erasure online, so we can try and go for some turbo milling. And we're going to play our land drop and pass the turn. There was the option there to use the Whirlpool Rider, but I would much rather use the Gush to return a couple lands before playing the Rider just to get a bigger mill going on. Seeing cycling does bode well for us, helping our win condition. The Jugabog doesn't do anything against us. And so we draw a land. That is nice, but we're just going to use our Gush right here. Depending on what we draw, we may just use the Whirlpool Rider. Since we got a second Erasure, we're going to go with that plan instead. Play that down, and here we have the options of either just kind of dirtling around a little bit with some Ponder. We've got a Daze. We could also go for an insane plan of gushing back these 2 lands and then playing the Whirlpool Rider. Go for a really massive mill turn, although I don't think that's necessary since we can gush next turn and do that if we wanted to. So mainly the options are either Whirlpool Rider now or Preordain Ponder for some extra things. I'm not sure what I went with at that time, and it looks like the Rider. My main reason for this, and I chose not to use the snap first, I'm not too worried about a Grey Merchant coming down next turn. Our opponent can replay Witches at any time, it's only picking for 1, and I'd rather just go for the biggest mill possible. This is going to give us a full new set of 7 cards, so I'm hoping with this plan that we'll get some more draw action, since this hand is fairly light on interaction. The other alternative, just for people wondering, using Ponder there, trying to find another draw spell, and then holding up Daze by returning a land to stop any Grey Merchant from coming down. But this plan seems fine to me, since we're going to have a really nice mill turn. We're just going to go ahead and let that play through. The way I've been pointing this at my opponent that I found fastest is if you click like up in the top, having it above, these things will fall down and you should be able to cycle them pointing at the opponent fairly quickly. We're going to take a little bit of damage, no big deal. And our opponent plays a Gurmag Angler, so that is a way of increasing the clock. Although, as long as we find some decent stuff, we should be in a good position here. Brainstorm is a good place to start off. Counter Magic, that's fine. I'm going to point all these at my opponent. And since we did find a Counterspell, I'm going to go ahead and leave that up. I don't want another Gurmag Angler or some other big beats coming down next turn, because that could close the game on us pretty quick. And yeah. Next turn we're hoping that the 2 Ponders plus Gush will be enough to get the mill win. So anything that my opponent plays here that's in my way, like a Chittering Rat, so I'm going to go ahead and counterspell that. I was a little bit worried about a second Gurmag Angler, since that would be able to win and would only give us 1 turn. But either way, I think we should be able to get the win here. And I just wanted to dig as deep as possible. So we're going to use the first Ponder, and there's the Whirlpool Rider. So that is the win right there. Since we can just cast the Gush after Ponder. Ponder's just going to cycle itself in this instance, just for a couple extra mill triggers. We're going to cast Gush, returning to lands, play a land, cast Whirlpool Rider, and then that's going to lock up the game. So we'll just let that play to its finish. Once again, you can just kind of click in the top left corner and kind of shoot them up, always going down the row so they don't shift and you can't... You'll see what I mean if you ever give this deck a try. So our opponent tries to draw a card and they lose. Always a good opportunity to take a look at what our opponent is on and what things we should be worried about, but it's a fairly typical mono black list. Various removal, lots of hit card advantage. They're playing the Sign and Blood package. I've been testing out the new Vampire that draws a card in that position. I do like it a little bit more than Sign and Blood. And Witches, so we don't really want to go on any kind of Spellstutter Sprite action there. We definitely want to stay on our Turbo Mill plan. So we're going to jump on over to game number 2. Taking a look at the sideboard. As I mentioned, I actually ended up bringing in some of the Spellstutters, even though I know they have Witches and cards that will deal with that. The conclusion I came to was they're going to be able to remove our Delvers no matter what. At least the Spellstutters give us some ability to counter some of their stuff, mainly Duresses and things of that nature that I expect coming in. I don't want to bring in the Ninjas since that requires a card like a Spellstutter being able to get in for some damage, but I felt like this was probably the best way of playing around what our opponent is doing given our current sideboard. If you've got some alternatives, please let me know for what might be a better plan. Like perhaps Curfew might have been a better card just to return some of their cards to their hand, although as I mentioned previously, they have a lot of ETB effects and we don't really want to be giving them additional triggers. So let's see how the Spellstutters perform. Opening hand, unfortunately not a keepable one. Send this one back. This one, barely keepable. I don't really like keeping a one-land hand with a Brainstorm. It does open us up to getting Brainstorm locked, especially since everything else is a 2-drop, but we do have a Scry at least. That's going to go to the bottom. And let's see how our Brainstorm goes. Sign of Blood, that's fine, no pressure. I didn't use it on their turn, mainly because I want to make sure I'm digging one card deeper. If I use it on their turn and there's no lands in the top 3, I've basically lost the game. By letting myself have a draw step, what that does is it allows me to get one extra draw before using the Brainstorm to dig desperately for that land drop. Since we did draw the island, I'm pretty happy about that. I'm just going to get the Erasure down now just to prevent any duress effects from taking it out. Chittering Rat's just a little bit annoying, but we should be fine. And we're going to cast it here. We're putting back the land and a Spellstutter. This land should be good enough to give us, it'll give us Counterspell. And we have Spellstutters open. We can't really play more than one a turn anyway. And we're doing just that. I don't want to see more Chittering Rats. Thankfully, it's just a Rager. And I decide I'm just going to counter it. I would like to keep our life total high, although it looks like we're getting punished by a Gurmag Angler. That's a little unfortunate. At least we've got chump blockers and Spellstutter Sprites. So rather than going on the chump block plan with them, I'm just going to cast a Rider here, use that for a chump block, and give us a free draw of 3 cards. We were basically looking for another Erasure plus some mill plan. Not finding that means I'm just going to play a land and hope to do this again next turn. Getting edicted is not the greatest. We're going to take 7 damage here, and things aren't looking too great. Spire Golem, we can play that and hold up Spellstutter Sprite if they try and edict us again. Looks like they're edicting us, so I'm just going to use Spellstutter as get in the way mode. Perhaps it would have been better to use the Rider, assuming that we're going to get hit by that. So we're not in a great position here. We're going to play a Rider just to play around them playing a land and an edict effect. Thought Scour, that's fine. We'll just get a bit more mill and a Preordain, a little bit more mill. Just a bunch of Thought Scours. We're just going to keep them on top because it might let us chain into the rest of the mill plan that we need. But things aren't looking too good since we basically have to win next turn. Especially since our opponent has now played a Pestilence, killed one of our guys. We're now forced to chump block on the Angler. So we know that we have a Thought Scour and a Preordain. So we're going to go ahead and cast the Thought Scour first, because we knew that there was a Whirlpool Rider on top. Sorry that I had missed showing that. We're going to cast Ponder since this is a redraw, and basically the only card that could have possibly given us a win there was a a Gush. These three cards means we have no way of winning here. We're going to play on and play the Whirlpool Rider looking for that Gush, but at this point there isn't a way for us to win. Drawing a land, and that is all she wrote on this one. We'll jump on over to game number 3. And I lost my sideboard, so I'll bring that back in the next one. I ended up taking out one of the Spellstutter Sprites. I felt a little clogged on those. And I brought in that Curfew. I want to try and find a way of bouncing more of their things, even though it's a bit annoying if they get ETB effects. But if I can manage to land the Curfew on basically their Angler, or even get like a chump block plus a Curfew, it might be just enough to get us a win. So we're going to try and do that. And let's see how our opening hand looks. This is keepable, although it's rather slow. We're going to have to preordain for a land. We got lots of bounce effects, so it should be able to buy us enough time. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one, and just kind of hope on this preordain. We found a Ponder and an Island. That is perfect, so we're going to keep both on top. Duress. We're going to lose our Daze. We did have the option of dazing that just to stop information, but when they were using Duress, it was pretty obvious that they were going to take the Daze there. And I'd rather not fall behind on land drops just to stop information from being revealed. We're going to play the Ponder, and we saw the Spire Golem first. We're going to put that down since we're not going to be playing it this turn or next. And we're looking to, well, the reason why is we already have a Spire Golem. And we're just going to kind of put the land next, and then the Preordain last. So, or the land there. I guess I switched things around. I think it would have been better to put the land in the Preordain. We could have cast the Preordain. Here we get to cast the Spire Golem. Chittering Rats. That's a little unfortunate. We're going to cast Preordain now. 2 Spire Golems. Unfortunately, we don't have a land to play another one this turn, so I'm not interested in keeping them. Ponder. Might be able to do something, although what I'm going to do here is plan on snapping. I hope they try and remove my Spire Golem and I can snap it back. Erasure. Don't have a way of countering that. That's fine. Spire Golem is going to hold down the fort for now. Gush. We're getting a little Gush flooded, but it does mean we can tap 2 lands and Gush at some point if we want to. Counterspell is a card we're looking for. Whirlpool Rider is not, since we don't have the ability to kind of go through everything, but based on the power of Counterspell, I'm going to keep that on top. And we're just going to go for the Gush plan here, since it was cards that we wanted to see. And yeah, we're just going to go with it from there. Chainer's Edict, we're going to go ahead and snap our creature back. But our opponent is going to kill it regardless. Alright, going to take 4 damage. We could play the Spire Golem here, but I am afraid of getting hit by a Grey Merchant. That would probably be a bit too much damage for us to take. Sign in Blood is fine. Wretched Mind. Here we either had the chance, we could either counterspell it or discard the Spire Golem. Looking at it now, I believe the best option would be to counterspell the Wretched Mind, play a land, and then play Spire Golem, use Echoing Truth to keep our Spire Golem alive or in hand. We could possibly even, after playing the Spire Golem, we can actually Gush, trying to find an additional counterspell at that point. But in the game, I did end up discarding the Spire Golem. I was more afraid of a Gurmag Angler coming next. And it turns out that that plan was correct. I didn't want to get hit by a Gurmag Angler, so I'm able to counter that. And things aren't looking the greatest with our current hand, so I'm just going to go ahead and gush back to 2 lands. This set of cards isn't looking that great. We could play a land and keep up Counterspell, but to be honest, I don't think that's a winning proposition, so I'm just going to go for a new hand. And it looks like we did manage to find land plus Counterspell anyways, so that's that. So a little unlucky that we haven't found Jace's Erasure yet, so that's putting us pretty behind on our ability to win. So let's see what our opponent's going to play here. Looks like they're playing around Daze. That makes sense, because I think they're playing a Gurmag Angler. And indeed they are. We're going to go ahead and counter that one as well. Snap is fine. Here we do find a Jace's Erasure, but it might be a little too late since we probably need 2 of them to really get a turbo mill win in. Next turn, we have to consider what happens if our opponent plays a Grey Merchant. Grey Merchant would hit us for 5, and then we're taking 2 damage, so we would survive with a chump block. But then I don't think we could win the turn after, but I don't think we have many other options. So we're going to put back a land and something else, because our main focus is just holding up this Counterspell. Our opponent attacks, and we are going to block. I considered using Curfew or Snap here, and I think Snap would give us a reasonable way of winning, since that's the rider we need to go with the Erasure, and it allows us to keep up Counterspell. Looks like our opponent does have the Grey Merchant we were afraid about, so we are able to Counterspell that, although I don't think we're going to be able to beat a second Grey Merchant, so we're just going to have to hope our opponent doesn't have one of those. Going to go ahead and get down the Erasure. And we're going to Gush here. Fortunately, we didn't find anything useful. So we're just going to go ahead and play the Rider, and that is more useful things, although we really needed to find some ways of going off with drawing cards. Opponent is drawing a card. We're kind of just hoping that they don't have a Grey Merchant here. And either way of blocking or taking the damage doesn't seem that great. And the Grey Merchant. So unfortunately, we did not manage to win this one. Our opponent had a pretty good start and kept pressure on us the entire game, and we weren't able to find our erasures in time. So the lesson I learned from this one, it might be a bit better to, especially in matchups like this, take that slightly aggressive mulligan, maybe trying to find that erasure, or something a bit better than just kind of like dirtling, hoping to find things. So that's my 2 cents on that one. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have ideas on alternatives, ways we could have played this one. And I will see you all in round 3.